Alright, hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This, of course, is another anime reaction video. Today, we're getting into some more Arakawa Under the Bridge. Up there is one of the most, absurd comedies I've ever seen so far. Obviously, there are some, really absurd and ridiculous moments in, say, Gintama, or, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Those are, the prime two, super bizarre shows. But the thing is that they're not only comedy. There's a great deal of comedy in both of them, but so far, this has just been absurdist comedy up the ass. It's insane, and I think a lot of that has to do with the production behind it. The animation and, the direction is insane on this show, and honestly, I'm surprised that I didn't get, I'm surprised less people talked about this show, maybe because it's mostly just a comedy and there isn't, much else to draw other people in, but it seems like even though it got 2 seasons, I don't ever hear anybody talking about it. You know what? It's kind of like Gintama in the West compared to Gintama in Japan. It was popular enough to get multiple seasons, but it's just something that sort of flies under the radar in the West or something like that. Because again, like I said, I don't remember how I ended up putting it on my watch list, but it's something I basically never hear anybody talking about. To be fair, most Western discourse when it comes to anime, or anything people are talking about in Western anime spheres or whatever you want to call it, is just what is the most popular well animated shonen anime of the season. But you know what? It's not really worth getting into into that. It's not worth it. It's really not worth it. Anyway. We're getting into the next few episodes of Arakawa Under the Bridge, 3 and 4 probably. Depends, I may or may not be able to record all 4 in today. But I should be able to get at least 3 today. I have a terrible schedule when it comes to recording. It's not worth getting into right now. But I should probably work on not having a terrible one, but without further ado, let's get started. As always, unless you're new here, there'll be links down in the description below, which will take you to the full-length, uncut reaction. So go ahead, follow one of those links, come back to YouTube for the discussion after you watch the reaction. But without further ado, let's get started. Episode 3 of Arakawa Under the Bridge. Alright. So I know that this is a goofy comedy, and I know the goofy comedy, just because it's a goofy comedy doesn't mean they can't do other things later on, but it's kind of interesting how they're starting to go down that line of it. They're developing a romance between Recruit and Nino a lot more than I thought they would have been, because I'm not too huge into romance. I'm getting more into it lately. I've always really loved the Toradora anime. I watched that pretty early on, I'd like to say, in my anime career, so to speak, my experience in anime. But it's just never something that appealed to me for whatever reason. But like I said, I've been getting into it more recently. I've enjoyed. Let me check. I don't think I have any Blu-rays of romance things. There's series where there's rom-coms, but it's mostly comedy more than romance. But obviously, I love Kage-sama Love is War, and I love how it's slowly become more serious about the romance while still having bits of comedy. But lately, all I can really think of off the top of my head that are straight up romance series is Takane and Hana, which is a series I started collecting recently, and Skip Beat has hints at it, but it's not as much of a romance. But I think just straight romance without any comedy, or at least less focus on comedy, where it's infinitely more rom than it is calm type thing, where there's a huge disparity between the two, or how do I describe it? It's just only the romance and nothing else. That sort of thing probably turns me off, and I think that's why I like series like Takane and Hana and Toradora and Arakawa Under the Bridge. If it becomes more of a romance series, I'm all for it, because I love it already, and seeing sweet moments between Recruit and Nina would be so good, because I think that's just me. I don't know why, but basically this whole episode was pretty much dedicated to Recruit just trying to figure out more about her as a person. Even though he was trying to have the date go exactly as he wanted it, and almost in that way have it be a really selfish thing where he's just he says he's taking her on a date, her out on a date, but it's more like he's taking himself out on a date, and she is also there, and he's really just using it as a pretense to get back at Starman Hoshi. I don't know if that'll ever come up again, but I kind of like that. I feel like he might have learned at least a little bit of a lesson, so to speak, in that it has to be like a two-way thing. You have to both enjoy the activities you do together. I mean, some people will absolutely be willing to put up with another person's like hobby, even though they don't particularly like it. But it's always like kind of like a trade-off. Like, I'll go with you to your thing, even though I don't really care. But then you'll do something for me, type thing. So I just wonder how they're gonna develop, and I wonder if there's gonna be like some time dedicated in the future to like having breaking her out of her like comfort zone. Her character is like super like shrouded in mystery as of right now, so not only that's an observation I didn't notice, and I think that's an interesting observation that Recruit made, is that whenever she wants to say no to something, she that's when she starts talking about Venus. It's almost like a defense mechanism, like a way of coping with like undesirable things, is to say it's because this outlandish thing, to like confuse people and get them to just drop the subject entirely. I couldn't tell you what it might have been that caused it, but I can tell you that I'm absolutely with Recruit, probably even more so than he is, because I've wanted to know what her deal is and what her backstory is and what her past was like, even before like all this. You know what I mean? It's those little bits of like sweetness. Like, the comedy by itself is so much fun and makes this like series like this worth watching, but it's also partly the bits of like non-comedy stuff, the bits of like wholesome, like sweet romantic stuff that absolutely makes watching the show even more worth it. It's kind of like Gintama. The comedy is great, but they complement each other. They make each other worth watching. You know what I mean? I don't know what I'm saying, but super excited to get to the next episode. Won't be able to watch it today, but with that all being said, I'm gonna get into the next episode now. So I think the first thing of note is the romance sequence at the beginning. There were little bits here and there that this is gonna be a like part romance series, and I was all for it because I really enjoyed the dynamic between Nino and Recruit. It's been a lot of fun, but I wasn't expecting to spend what is that, almost 10 minutes on like a genuinely like really like fun and like interesting romance sequence. like that was legitimately, well, if it wasn't for the last episode, that would have been like almost completely out of left field. Like, I seriously wasn't expecting to spend so long on like without like really many huge like joke set pieces, so to speak. You know what I mean? It was just it was mostly just like it was mostly just like sweet stuff, and I really enjoyed it. Outside of like the figuring out how to do a date thing, then we just spent like it's so, in a way, it's exactly how the show would go about these sort of things. Just like, by the way, here's something that will make you like all happy inside. It'll make you feel emotions other than like legitimately like laughing out loud, which is one of the best things about like some of my favorite shows are comedies that do that. Fucking Gintama's been amazing with that. K-On!, Lucky Star, they've all just like lulled me into like a false sense of security that I'm just gonna be like a happy-go-lucky comedy series throughout the entire thing, and then at one point or another, they're just like, by the way, here's these really incredibly sweet, wholesome moments, and on occasion, and I hope, and I think it should happen here, but I'm gonna say now that I hope it doesn't, because I don't want my heart broken too bad. But occasionally they'll hit you with something really sad and make you really sad. I can't think of anything that might do that to me in this show, except for maybe learning more about the backstories of basically like every character that lives under the bridge. First and foremost, obviously Nino's. There's something to her. I think she's just using the whole Venus thing as a way to... I mean, I think it's obvious at this point. She's using the whole Venus thing as like a coping mechanism, or like a way to avoid her past, whatever happened to her in her past, by changing the subject to be weird and outlandish. And it's so weird and outlandish when she changed the subject that either they drop the person that's talking to her just drops it immediately, or they keep persisting, but then eventually get so frustrated that they eventually drop it and never bring it up again, type thing, you know? Well, I get the feeling that somehow Recruit is gonna break through, you know, and get to know her on a much deeper level. And I do kind of hope that we get to learn more about like other under bridge dwellers, so to speak. The main thing I want to know more about is Nino, obviously, because you know, romance. That's the biggest mystery of this series so far. But it would also be cool to see some of the backstories, like especially sister. He, she, whatever, seems to have like one of the most like interesting backstories so far, because it's almost like it's going for the redeemed like soldier type thing, where it's like I was in the war, and I was in the nondescript war, and I did things I'm not proud of, so I'm here to make up for those sins from war type thing by taking care of orphans. Which, honestly, I respect. Like, it's been done a few times. I can't name very many off the top of my head. I just know it's, like, a thing that's been done multiple times in, like, different pieces of media, but I always enjoy it. Because it's always, like, a fun thing, but then usually it ends up being super tragic. Like, in drama series, it ends up being tragic, where it's, like, their past comes back to kill them, you know? That always sucks. But it is always emotionally impactful. But honestly, if they ended up only like really just like exploring Nino's in depth and like leaving the rest of it to be like, you know, crumb trails, just like implying a lot of things and leaving it up to interpretation for the audience, I think that would still work for this show. I would be a little bit disappointed, but it kind of fit into the sort of absurd nature of this show, where it's just like, by the way, look at all this crazy shit that's happening underneath this fucking bridge, which it's not advised. But this show, because I'm not going to, but I almost feel like after watching this show, going and talking to the homeless people that live under the bridge, under any bridge really. I'm not, like I said. It's just one of those things, you know. It's just one of those things that is romanticized, I suppose you could call it, which is ironic because there's a romance going on with Nino and Recruit. But the point, romanticized, not entirely in like the romance way, but like being like, hey, look at all these cool, wacky things and like these fun people you can meet underneath your bridge, when they're most likely, if you were to go under a bridge and see a group of people acting all weird, they're just a bunch of crackheads that would like stab you. Not all of them, I will say that, not all of them, but it's a dangerous world just in general. Where am I going with it? I need to stop. This is a wonderful episode. God, and that blush, that's one of those blushes that I would die to protect, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things that you just feel so strongly about. It's like you would do anything to make sure it like nothing bad ever happens to it. I just want to protect, you know what I mean? But that's pretty much all I had to say about this episode. If you watched all the way to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single upload in the future. Thank you once again for watching. Peace.